Marc Marquez just killed any chance of making peace with Valentino Rossi. Not delayed it, not postponed it, killed it. Dead. And Ducati, the manufacturer employing Marquez and supplying Rossi's team, can't do a single thing about it. August 8th, 2026. Marquez sits down with Paddock Media at Silverstone and gets asked the question everyone has been discussing for 11 years. Will he ever reconcile with Rossi? His answer wasn't diplomatic. It wasn't carefully worded PR speak. He addressed questions regarding Rossi by indicating that both have moved on with their respective careers. Just a flat rejection that torpedoed an entire corporate peace initiative. This matters so much because Ducati just locked both of these rivals under the same roof through 2028 and 2029 respectively. Marquez signed a 2-year factory extension in June. VR46 Racing, Rossi's team, renewed their satellite partnership with Ducati in July, running straight through 2029. Same manufacturer, same technical support structure, same corporate umbrella funding both operations. And they can't even look at each other without reigniting a feud that's been radioactive since 2015. 11 years. That's how long this has been burning. September 2024. Rossi goes on Andrea Migno's podcast, Mig Babel, and claims no rider has ever been as dirty as Marquez. Not in a memoir where time softens the edges. On a public podcast where every word gets clipped and posted across every MotoGP forum on the internet. He accused Marquez of deliberately sabotaging his 2015 title campaign at Sepang, framing the whole thing as a calculated hit job rather than a racing incident. Rossi wasn't letting go. He was pouring gasoline on embers that never stopped glowing. Ducati's position is absurd because they thought money and time would fix this. Davide Tardozzi, Ducati's team manager, went public in July 2026, declaring it his personal mission to force a handshake between these two. He told the media he wanted to put the damn year of 2015 behind them and move forward like professionals. Noble goal. Completely delusional execution. Because you can't broker peace between two people when one of them fundamentally doesn't want peace, and the other one has spent the last decade positioning himself as the wronged party in MotoGP's most toxic rivalry. Marquez's rejection wasn't emotional. That's what makes it so final. He didn't lash out. He didn't match Rossi's energy or throw accusations back across the paddock. He just stated a fact. I don't need him. He doesn't need me. Cold, indifferent, done. That's not the language of someone nursing a grudge. That's the language of someone who's moved on and doesn't care if the other person comes with him. So, how did things get this bad? Subscribe to this channel and you'll start noticing how many things like this happen right under your nose. These stakes are historical. Both riders sit at 9 total world championships. Both hold 7 premier class titles. Exact statistical deadlock. Marc Marquez clinched his 9th title at the 2025 Japanese Grand Prix on September 28th, becoming the oldest MotoGP champion of the 4-stroke era at 32 years old. He had previously endured a 1,043-day Grand Prix winless drought before mounting his championship comeback. 1,043 days of injuries, surgeries, doubt, and people writing him off as finished. He clawed his way back and matched Rossi's career tally in the most defiant way possible. And Rossi? He's retired from MotoGP racing but runs VR46 as owner and figurehead. His legacy is no longer something he controls on track. It's something his riders defend for him. And they're doing it aggressively. June 28th, 2026. Asymmetry. A VR46 rider pushes Marquez wide in a move so forceful it drew immediate attention across the paddock. Not a racing incident. A message. This wasn't 2 riders fighting for position. This was a team enforcing the ideology of its founder against a rider their boss has repeatedly clashed with and criticized. You're watching a corporate nightmare play out in real time. Ducati funds both sides of a cold war they can't control. VR46 gets factory-level support, engineering, telemetry, and parts development from the same manufacturer that employs Marquez as its marquee rider. They share the same technical briefings, the same data pipelines, the same shared telemetry. And underneath all of that professional cooperation sits a personal hatred so entrenched that no amount of money or media pressure can crack it. Tardozzi's peace mission was dead on arrival because he misunderstood what he was dealing with. This isn't a dispute over racecraft or team orders. This is a blood feud between two riders who each believe the other destroyed something sacred. Rossi thinks Marquez cost him his 10th world title, the one that would have made him the undisputed greatest of all time. Marquez thinks Rossi tried to end his career with a collision in Malaysia and then weaponized his fan base to paint him as the aggressor. Neither one is budging. Neither one has any incentive to budge. If this is hitting different, take a second to hit, like, it genuinely helps the algorithm show this to more people who need to see it. And now Ducati is trapped paying both sides of the rivalry. They can't fire Marquez. He's their reigning world champion and the face of their factory team. They can't drop VR46. Rossi's brand brings sponsorship, media attention, and a fan base that treats him like a deity even nearly 5 years into retirement. So they sit in the middle, writing checks to both camps and pretending this is sustainable. It's not. The Assen incident proved that. When intense track rivalries spill over between satellite and factory squads, you're no longer managing a simple sports rivalry. You're managing a proxy war. And proxy wars don't end with handshakes. They end when one side wins or both sides exhaust themselves. Marquez's statement in August acted as a declaration of indifference. Rossi needs the feud because it keeps him relevant. His entire post-retirement identity is built on being the people's champion wronged by the villain. Marquez doesn't need any of that. He's got his 9th title. He's fighting to get back to the front again. He's rebuilding his legacy in real time, while Rossi's legacy sits frozen in 2015, defined by what he didn't win rather than what he did. That's the asymmetry Tardozzi failed to understand. Rossi is fighting to preserve a narrative. Marquez is fighting to write a new one. One of those positions has an advantage. The other one doesn't. And Ducati, for all their resources and influence, can't change the fact that Marquez holds all the cards. He's younger. He's faster. He's still competing. And he just told the entire paddock he doesn't care if Rossi ever forgives him. Think about what that means for VR46. They're contractually locked to Ducati through 2029. Marquez is locked through 2028. That's at minimum 2 more full seasons of shared garages, shared engineering debriefs, and shared manufacturer obligations while the owner of one team refuses to acknowledge the existence of the other team's lead rider. How do you run a professional racing operation under those conditions? How do you collaborate on bike development when half the people in the room fundamentally distrust the other half? You don't. You create parallel structures. You silo information. You build walls inside a team that's supposed to be unified. And eventually, that inefficiency costs you on track. Not immediately. Not in a way that shows up in a single race result. But over time, the friction accumulates. Data doesn't get shared as freely. Engineering insights stay compartmentalized. Riders stop trusting the feedback loop because they know some of the people feeding that loop would rather see them fail. And the worst part? There's no exit strategy. Marquez isn't leaving. Rossi isn't selling VR46. The feud isn't fading. So Ducati keeps writing checks and hoping the problem solves itself, even though every piece of evidence says it won't. Rossi's September 2024 podcast appearance served as a reminder that his version of history is non-negotiable. He genuinely believes Marquez is the dirtiest rider in MotoGP history. He genuinely believes the 2015 Sepang collision was deliberate, and he spent nearly 11 years constructing an entire mythology around that belief. His fans believe it. His team believes it. And because Rossi is who he is, a 7-time champion, cultural icon, and the face of MotoGP for 2 decades, his version of events carries weight even when the evidence is disputed. Because Rossi's narrative is entrenched, Marquez stopped trying. He rebuilt his career, won another title, and moved on. And in doing so, he rendered Rossi's grievance irrelevant. Not resolved. Irrelevant. Because if Marquez doesn't care, then Rossi is fighting a war with no opponent. He's shadowboxing with someone who's already left the ring. That's what Tardozzi's peace mission missed. You can't reconcile 2 people when one of them has already emotionally disengaged. While Marquez has focused on his own racing, their rivalry remains unresolved. He just doesn't think about him. And that indifference is more devastating than any counterattack could ever be. VR46's riders are left in an impossible position. They're racing for a team whose identity is defined by opposition to a rider their manufacturer employs. Every time they share a track with Marquez, they're navigating a political minefield. Race him clean and risk, looking like they're betraying Rossi's legacy. Race him hard and risk, looking like they're fighting someone else's battle. There's no winning move, just varying degrees of losing. And Ducati? They're stuck managing a situation that has no good outcome. They can't force reconciliation. They can't separate the teams. They can't ignore the problem. So they keep pretending it's manageable, even as the evidence piles up that it's not. The Asin incident, the podcast comments, Tardozzi's public push for reconciliation. Every single data point says this is unsustainable. And yet the contracts keep getting signed. Marquez is 33. Rossi is 47 and retired from MotoGP. One of them is writing the final chapter of his racing career. The other is managing a team that exists primarily to defend his mythology. Those are not symmetrical positions. Marquez holds the power because he's still performing at the highest level. Rossi has influence because of what he did a decade ago. And in MotoGP, just like everywhere else, present performance beats past glory. That's why Marquez's rejection landed so hard. It was purely honest. I don't need him. He doesn't need me. And in saying that, Marquez stripped away every ounce of power Rossi had left. Because if Marquez doesn't need reconciliation, then Rossi is the only one still carrying the weight of 2015. And that weight isn't going anywhere. Ducati's next move is the real question. Do they keep pretending this is fine and hope time solves it? Do they restructure their satellite partnerships to create more distance? Do they let the contracts run out and quietly rebuild their team structure without VR46? None of those options are clean. All of them cost money, political capital, or both. And in the meantime, they're funding a rivalry that undermines their own operational efficiency. Marquez won because he stopped caring whether Rossi apologized or admitted fault. He took back control of his narrative, won another title, and left Rossi arguing with ghosts. That's not reconciliation. That's dominance. And VR46, for all their posturing and all their history, can't do a single thing about it. If any of this stuck with you, like and subscribe. There's so much more to uncover.